Today we're going to be breaking down the Leetcode 125, valid palindrome. This is actually one of the most common Leetcode questions in the Blind 75, and it's pretty important that you know it since it appears all the time in interview questions. So like usual, let's actually break this question down. What actually is a palindrome? Well, a palindrome is just a word or a phrase that reads the exact same forwards and backwards. A common word is something like race car. You can read it the same forwards or backwards. But I mean, of course, these companies and Leetcode, they're not just going to give you clean words. But what these guys are going to try to do, they're going to try to stump you. They're going to give you something confusing, something with not just regular words, something with mixed casings, things like colons, a full sentence like a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. Now, the original constraint to the question, it states that we have to ignore all non-alphanumeric characters and treat uppercase and lowercase letters as identical. Alright, so from here, if the cleaned up version reads the same both ways, we just return true. Otherwise, we return false. Let's just check out the simple brute force approach first. First, let's check out the function signature itself. Okay, so what we're going to be doing, we're going to be taking in our input string s annotated with a string type hint, and we're explicitly telling the compiler and our team that this function must evaluate to a boolean. You should always try and actually use type hints since it makes it more clear what you were trying to originally do with your code. Let's go over the code itself for the brute force approach. First, we initialize an empty string, new string. We loop through every character C and S. We use .isAllNum to check if it's alphanumerical, convert it with .lower, and concatenate it to new string. Now finally, we check if new string matches its slice reversal, new string :(-1), or start at the very end and keep incrementing backwards by 1. If you run this on Leetcode, it's going to turn green and pass the test suite. But let's say if you're in a technical interview with someone from Google, this is going to raise immediate red flags for them. Why though? Well, it all comes down to memory. You're actually allocating an entirely new string on the heap with new string, and then Python slice syntax ::(-1), or start at the end and increment backwards by 1, it allocates another temporary string copy in memory. That immediately puts your space complexity up to O of n. So if that string contains millions of characters, you're needlessly blowing up memory. To get O of 1 memory space, we're going to have to use an old technique that we've already used multiple times through this Leetcode series. Our old friend, the two-pointer technique. We place left at index 0 and right at length of s minus 1. But at the moment, the string is full of spaces, commas, and punctuation. We have to bypass the invalid characters before we can make any sort of comparison. Here's where you separate yourself for this interview question. You don't call .isAllNum. You're going to talk to the computer directly. You need to remember that when you're talking to your computer, everything is just a bunch of zeros and ones. Every character is just an integer under the hood, and that maps directly to a series of bytecodes of zeros and ones as well. Uppercase A to Z, 65 to 90. Lowercase a to z, 97 to 122. Digits 0 to 9, 48 to 57. So you write your own helper with ORD. Now the interviewer knows you understand how characters are actually stored, not just which method to call. And that's how you actually code your answer using O of 1 space, with no built-in Python libraries. That's how you turn a simple Leetcode pass into actually getting hired by a big company like Google. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully join me in the next Leetcode question.